Essay 64. Summary and Review of the Biography by Kerry Pendergast, 1971 to 1978. The Life of Myron Evans, www.cisp-publishing.com, 2011. This is an excellent biography by the Royal Society Hawksby medalist, Kerry Pendergast. It is pleasantly written and readable. In this essay I give a summary of the material for the book for the sake of historical accuracy at university level. My time in Pontardawe Grammar School is summarized in the first volume of my autobiography. There are momentous changes taking place in physics, and as a result, some misguided people may try to distort the facts. They are given here. This material will be developed in further volumes of my autobiography. I was educated at University College of Wales, Aberystwyth, in the Natural Sciences Tripos. I was awarded the Matthews Prize for Best First-Year Results in Chemistry in 1969. In 1971, I graduated the top first in chemistry and was informed by professorial staff that this was one of the best degrees in the history of the college, if not the best. I was awarded a Dr. Samuel Williams studentship for a PhD, supervised by Professor Mansell Davies. In 1972, I was awarded a French government scholarship in open competition to work in Nice and Nancy at CNRS laboratories. I published several papers before I graduated PhD, the first student to do so in the history of the college, and graduated PhD in 1974. Professor Mansell Davies later wrote to me to inform me that this was one of the two best PhDs he had supervised. My external examiner was Professor John Rowlingson, FRS, of Oxford, later knighted. In that year I was awarded 3 prestigious postdoctoral fellowships in open competition, SRC, ICI Imperial, and NRCC Canada, to work with the Nobel laureate Hertzberg. I took up the SRC fellowship at Oxford with Professor Rowlingson's group. In 1975, I was awarded a prestigious Junior Research Fellowship of Wolfson College in open competition and a large SRC grant which I took up at Aberystwyth, where I expected to be awarded tenure on promises of such by professorial staff. I started the BBC Hall of Fame group at Aberystwyth in 1975. When Mansell Davies asked me to supervise Gareth Evans. Obviously, there was plenty of confidence in my ability and my prospects of a lectureship or tenured research fellowship at Aberystwyth. I returned there on these promises of tenure. Winning 5 prestigious fellowships was already unprecedented in British academic history. I was on friendly terms with all staff. Tenure should certainly have been awarded in 1975 when I returned to Aberystwyth from Oxford. I had certainly been promised tenure after 2 years at Oxford. Both Mansell Davies and John Thomas were very proud of me at that point, and Gareth Evans recalls this well. As a Welsh speaker, my proper place was Aberystwyth. All I wanted was a tenured research fellowship, a very modest amount of salary. I was already bringing in funding to Aberystwyth. As 1975 turned into 1976, tenure was not forthcoming, and due to a quiet nature, I did not press for the promise to be honoured. I could see that tenure was awarded without competition to strengthen John Thomas's group. This type of thing was not to my liking. None of those awarded tenure had won an open competition. I had won 5. I began to get anxious, and applied for a Ramsay Memorial Fellowship, which I won in 1976 in open competition. This is one of the premier fellowships of Great Britain, and Mansell Davies was delighted. He told me I had won it by a mile. That was all very well, but no mention was made of tenure, and there was no reason for not awarding me tenure, funds being available. I began to build up the BBC Hall of Fame group, and it established an international reputation. This was recognized by the award to me in January 1978 of the Scientiae Doctor, and in the same year the prestigious Harrison Memorial Prize for the Royal Society of Chemistry. The professorship, however, forgot its promise of tenure. purely because John Thomas was building up his own group and consuming the funds. That is the real reason for this broken promise. In 1977, I was offered a lectureship at Swansea by Howard Purnell via Mansell Davies, who was clearly unhappy about it. I found out why shortly later, because the same post was advertised even though it had been offered to me. I found this to be atrociously corrupt and shocking because candidates were invited who did not have a chance. Great pressure was applied to get me to move to Swansea. That was corruption by a professor, and I resent it deeply to this day. Shortly after I became the youngest doctor in Scientiae in modern history, I won a Circ Advanced Fellowship, being graded top of my year. Some staff at the EDCL, notably Phil Cadman, saw that Purnell was about to ruin my career and group by demoralizing the whole setup, so advised me to apply for this 5-year fellowship. I was told that I'd won it again by a mile, graded top of my year in chemistry in the whole of Britain. I decided to take up this prestigious fellowship, specifically intended by the government for tenure, and my 6th in open competition. Purnell became bitterly angry and decided to ruin my career just because I wanted to stay at Aberystwyth. He was one of the most vindictive men I have ever met, and that says a lot. Gareth Evans witnessed all of these events firsthand. So the professorial staff were playing around with my career in a deeply reprehensible way. Recently, I learned that the DSc is intended to be a distinction higher than a full professor, and I was certainly ready for a research professorship in 1978. My all-round skills were such as to become a coordinator for all Europe in 1980, and to found and coordinate a European-wide group at the National Physical Laboratory. The latter wanted me to go there and nominated me for the Harrison Memorial Prize. In 1976, I had already opened a Gordon Conference in front of several Nobel laureates in Holderness School, New Hampshire. I had opened another conference in the Dublin Institute for Advanced Studies and had begun cooperation with Trinity College Dublin. There was nothing wrong with my lecturing abilities or any other skill. The blame for lack of tenure and great damage to my career lies with the professorial staff of that era, Howard Purnell, John Thomas, and to a lesser extent, Mansell Davies, who had lost influence and retired in 1978. In the same year, I was invited to a reception by Principal Sir Goronwy Daniels and Lady Daniels, granddaughter of Lloyd George. The principal was very pleased with my DSc, and clearly expected John Thomas to give me tenure. I know now that I should have become a tenured research professor, and that would have saved the EDCL from closure because of the productivity and reputation of my group. The Scientiae Doctor is a higher distinction than a personal chair. That is an undeniable fact. By 1978, I had already published 60 papers, the lifetime output of Mansell Davies, who was a full professor. My lecturing skills were already acknowledged to be outstanding. The lack of tenure was due to careerism and greed among the professorial staff. They simply abdicated duty and broke promises. Since then, Aberystwyth has deteriorated sharply into insignificance, and my work is making the biggest impact in the world of physics. Only the worst bigot would deny these facts. They are all witnessed first-hand by Gareth Evans, and are written elegantly in the biography by Kerry Pendergast. www.aias.us